Hi everyone. In this video, we're going to see what is the new format for the TOEFL that is going to start in 2026, specifically in January 21st, 2026. So if you're planning to take your TOEFL on January 21st or after, this is the format that you're going to take. If you're taking your TOEFL before that date, then just watch the other videos for the format, for the TOEFL format. That, by the way, started in 2023. The old one is from 2023 on because there's an older one than that one, and then a previous one and a previous one, and so on. Okay, we're gonna start with an overview of the sections. I know this is very small print, but we're gonna zoom in. Okay, so we're gonna start with the reading section. The reading section now contains three types of tasks. I'm not gonna show you examples of the question. I'm not gonna show you question types. I'm gonna make future videos for those. This is just an overview. So now we're going to have complete the words, read in daily life. So a short text that contains information and vocabulary from daily life. And finally, read an academic passage. This is different from the previous one because in the previous TOEFL, the texts were a little bit more academic and longer. This contains shorter text, shorter length of text, and also easier vocabulary than the previous one. This one, the reading section, has 50 questions in total. That one is more, but again, the texts are shorter. There are more questions, but shorter things to read. And approximately you have 30 minutes to complete the task. Then the second task will be the listening task. Here, the listening section, here we have four types of tasks. We have listen and choose a response. So you listen to a question and then you choose from alternatives the response to that question. Then you have to listen to a conversation. Again, it's a very short conversation, not necessarily academic in nature. Then we have to listen to an announcement and finally listen to academic talk. This is similar to the academic talks in the listening. Again, a little bit shorter. There are 47 questions in total, more than before, and there are 29 minutes for the task, which is shorter than before. Then the third module is the writing module. This is the first change. Well, not the first change. The first change in order that you're gonna see, because in the previous TOEFL, speaking was before writing. Here, writing is before speaking. Here, we're gonna build a sentence. So it's just sentence by sentence. You have to fill in the words for the sentence. Then you're gonna write an email, and you're gonna have a prompt, and then you have to write an email, and then you're gonna write for an academic discussion. This one is similar to the previous TOEFL, to the TOEFL 2023. This is the only task that is similar from all the exam, not just from the writing, from all the exam. This is the only one that is the same. You have 12 questions in total. Remember, the majority of these will be the build a sentence, and you have approximately 23 minutes to complete it. Finally, we have the speaking section, the speaking module, which is the final module. Here we have to task first, listen or repeat, which is literally you listen and you repeat. So you listen to a sentence and then you repeat the sentence. The trick here is that the sentences are going to start becoming increasingly difficult, especially longer and longer sentences, and you have to just repeat them. And finally, take an interview. You're going to pretend, or you're actually going to be interviewed by quote unquote someone. So far, I think it's going to be like an AI representation of a person. I still don't know about this, like for sure, for sure. So there are 11 questions in this module, and there's 8 minutes for it to complete it. Now, this information, by the way, is taken from the official ETS, which are the providers who administer the TOEFL exam. So this is official information. So you will have a break, and you will take in total approximately 1.5 hours. Why? Because you can speed up. Remember, just as before, you can speed up, which means, let's say you have 50 questions, right, with a total limit of 30 minutes. But if you want to, you can finish this in 20 minutes if you want to. So it's not going to take 30 minutes, but 20 minutes. So except for the listening and the speaking questions, in which you do have to wait for the audio to play and then wait for your time to respond, the other sections can be sped up, which means you may take shorter. Also means you do want to plan for taking it a little bit longer, because there are some instructions not included. Time does not include directions. So at the beginning of each section, they are going to tell you, they're going to explain the section and the questions to you. So that is not part of these timings. So it may take a bit longer. That's why it's approximately 1.5 1.5 hours, not exactly 1.5 hours. And finally, well, I'm going to put this here. I'm going to also explain it. As the test adapts, test times and items may vary. What does this mean? Well, don't worry. We're going to check on this. We're going to check out what are the differences and the novelties of the new TOEFL. So we're going to compare the old and the new format. The new version, the 2026, is shorter. Now, remember, this one is 1.5 hours. The previous one was approximately 2 to 2.5 hours. And it's also adaptive. This is what the previous note was saying. What does it mean to be adaptive? If you have already taken, or are you planning on taking an SAT, a GMAT, or even I think other digital exams that are quote unquote adaptive, it means that no two students are going to get the same question because the question that follows depends on the answer of the previous question. So you say, let's say you have question one, two, three. Your answer on question one will modify or will influence question number two. And then question number three will be influenced by question number two. And then question number four by question number three, and so on and so forth. This is what it means to be adaptive. This, you can Google this. I don't want to take too long explaining this, but this is good, bad, but it's mostly good, which means if you're failing, let's say question one, you get it wrong, then question two is going to be a little bit easier. And if you also get it wrong, question three is going to be easier. So you're probably going to get it right. And then question four is going to be a little bit harder than question three. So you're probably also going to be maybe getting it right. And then question five is going to be a little bit harder. So you're probably going to get it wrong. Now, if you get question one correct, then two is going to be harder, so you get it correct. So maybe three is going to be more hard, like harder than that, and you may get it wrong. So it's a game of numbers. I wouldn't say that it's necessarily always better, but I do think is for the majority of students better. Now, the third change is now we have a score of 1 to 6. In the old exam, we had a score of 0 to 120. So the previous score was until 120, and now we have a score of 1 to 6. Now, here I do want to stop a moment to say that the majority of colleges, universities, and maybe even jobs, if you're taking a TOEFL for a job, require a minimum of 80 points in the current TOEFL. This corresponds to a 4 in the new scale, which means there you can Google also the scales. It means like if you get a 4, it's like getting an 80 in the previous TOEFL. Now, another difference is that this new TOEFL is going to use simpler language. Again, the texts are shorter, but also the language in the text are simpler. So it's not just a short text with the same language, it's an actually short text with simpler language. So even the academic passages are not going to rely that heavily on like certain specific vocabulary that you can find nowadays in this current TOEFL 2023. And finally, the speaking goes after writing because again in the previous TOEFL, meaning in this current TOEFL, because if you're watching the video in 2025, in the TOEFL 2023, the writing goes after the speaking. Here the speaking goes after writing, being the last module. Okay, here we can see another kind of explanation of the differences. So I'm gonna go very quickly through this. Remember that this document will be on the description. You can download the document on the webpage that is linked in the description. So reading all TOEFL 2023 until 2025, 2025, I'm gonna put 2025, 2025, new TOEFL starting 2026 onwards. So, two long passages and 20 questions, 35 minutes. This new TOEFL has short passages, 50 questions. I know it sounds like more questions and less time. And this is because the questions are shorter and to the point, especially in the ones that you had to complete. Then the listening, we used to have 3 lectures, 2 conversations, 20 questions, 36 minutes. Now we have short sentences and short conversations and short lectures, more questions, many more questions, 47 questions, and less time, 29 minutes, again, because the questions are shorter and I do think are easier. Speaking used to be 4 tasks and take 16 minutes. Now we have 2 tasks, but 11 questions for those tasks. It used to be 4 tasks and just 1 question per task. Now we have 11 questions for those 2 tasks and now 8 minutes. And finally, the writing section. There used to be 2 sections or 2 tasks integrated and independent tasks. Now we have 3. We have the short sentences task, which are many questions. We have the one email, you had to write an email. And then we have independent, which is the academic task, which is the same as before. This is the only question that remains from the previous TOEFL. And the time has also changed. Now we have 8 minutes and 29 minutes. Finally, okay, considerations. Now, the overall score, these are taken from the official exam. The overall score will be the average of all four sections rounded to the nearest half band. Remember, we go from 1 to 6, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So let's say you take the average, you score each section, like you start reading, listening, writing, and speaking, and you score them, you get the average, and you get 4.75. So instead of rounding it up, like instead of rounding this to 5, we're going to round down to the nearest half band. So we're going to round it to 4.5. Then we hope for a 2-year transition period after January 26th. So this starts, remember, in January 21st, 2026. Students will also receive a comparable overall score on the 0 to 120 scale. Again, so if you take from 2026 until 2028, when you get this new TOEFL, this TOEFL 2026, you are going to get both the 1 through 6 score. Again, let's say you take a 4, you have a 4, and also you're gonna receive the corresponding score. Especially if this, I think this is being done because when you apply to schools, and maybe schools haven't changed or updated the system yet, so to avoid confusion or to avoid being rejected. Because again, let's assume you send your TOEFL score as 4, and the school still believes that you're taking a TOEFL that goes from 0 to 120. They may believe that you're taking 4 out of 120 and not 4 out of 6, which is, yes, a huge difference. Okay, how to study for the exam? Well, unlike the previous exam, and if you haven't been watching my videos, starting 2026, January 21st, 2026, pretty much all of my videos will become obsolete. You can use them to improve your English in general, but they will no longer be useful for the new TOEFL. So what do you have to do? I still haven't planned on getting a new or uploading a new video course for the new TOEFL. I may do it during the year. I don't promise to do it before the 21st. But what can you do? Get familiar with exam. How do you get familiar with exam? First, you want to do the free practice test on the official website. On the official website, the ETS website, there are 3 free practice tests that you can take. My advice is take one practice test, only one, review it fully, thoroughly, and then take another one. Also review it fully, thoroughly, and then take the third. You can also practice using ChatGPT, especially for the interview and the completing the word questions. Um, I know some people online have been saying, yes, this is maybe is better than the previous one, or maybe it's easier or not easier. I think this new exam is going to definitely be easier than the previous TOEFL. So don't worry too much. I would say you don't really have to study that much or as much as you used to need to study for the previous exam. Like 2026, okay, is definitely easier than 2023. So you don't really have to go through all the hassle we used to go for the old TOEFL. Okay, what you cannot do, you cannot use the exam same material for the reading, listening, and practices of 2023. Again, all the material I have on my YouTube channel, on my website for the previous TOEFL is useless. You cannot use it starting on January 21st. But you can use, well, I say all, so I wasn't correct because you can use something. You can use the third question of the new writing is going to be similar to the second question of the old writing. So in 2023, right, writing question 2 is equal to 2026 writing question 3. This is the only thing that you can use. My advice is don't use it. Just go with it. Unless you see that you're really bad at that task, in which case, yes, go and just practice with that one. Other than that, just keep doing the new material. Things to remember in general. Remember that TOEFL is just a measure. So it's just a measure, a specific measure to tell how well you can provide the specific things that they require from you. So basically, you're not studying English, you're studying for an exam, and this exam is TOEFL. And it's a measure of your English level in specific situations, the situations the exam puts you into. And it's also something you need to go study or work abroad. Again, this is just a step in the ladder. Like, this is the ladder of your life or your plans, your academic or your whatever life, right? And TOEFL is just here, right? You're gonna keep moving on. So you take the TOEFL, you forget about the TOEFL, you keep moving on. This is the ladder of your life. TOEFL is not really something as important as some people think it is. So TOEFL is definitely not the ultimate proof of your English level, especially not now. So you may be very good at regular English and still not be so good at TOEFL, which is why do want to get familiar with the exam. Don't just say, no, but I'm so good at speaking, writing, and listening to English. And of course, I'm going to ace this exam. No, still study for it. And it's also not as hard as it seems. Again, especially 2026, which definitely doesn't seem as hard as before, still not as hard as it seems. Okay, now recommended tutor. I of course recommend myself. Although to be fair and honest, I think I'm gonna have fewer students for TOEFL because it's definitely easier. I think most of my students now are going to be for speaking and writing. I mean, in all TOEFL, also most of my students were, or we did most of classes about speaking and writing, because reading and listening are something that you can just learn the strategy and just correct on your own. But speaking and writing are the things that you may need a person to correct and to help you with understanding. Okay, so I'm still gonna read this part. You can also find a convenient tutor online. I do recommend that you feel comfortable with the lessons you take and don't pay extra cash for material you can easily get online. This is why also why I give my stuff for free, because you can, if you Google enough, you will find enough material. So don't pay extra cash for material unless it's original material, in which case yes, pay, because that person has taken the effort to create original material. I'll sometimes just get original material for free. Also, see that you're not wasting class time doing long readings or other stuff you can do on your own. Remember, the class, a tutor for this type of exams is more like, I don't know, is not like a teacher. It's more like a trainer. They are training you, they're helping you improve in the little things. We are not an audiobook. We're not supposed to just give you the information you can just read on your own. Finally, remember that you can find these presentations and other material, free material, including the free official practice test, in my website, thewayofthetest.com. And that's it. You can leave any questions or comments in the comments, and we will see you next time.